Hello, music students. This is a brief explanation of our next steps with our project. As I went researching for things to guide you and help you in our next steps, came across the idea that while I kind of introduced this as project-based learning or problem-based learning, basically what we're seeing here is, this is the key word we're looking at here, is inquiry. And it's still based on the same principle, right? You're looking into the topic of music and trying to learn things that you really desire to learn. Right? So it really gives you a choice in your learning, and that's the point of it. You choose something that you want to learn about, you take the time to research it and kind of build on it, and in the end, you come back and teach others about it to kind of share your interests that you found, or just share what you discovered. Right? So in that sense, it's a little bit similar to what a teacher normally asks you to do, because the teacher says, okay, this is what I want you to learn. I'm going to ask you to research, and then you're going to present on the topic that I've chosen. The difference really here being that you get to choose the topic. You are going to kind of outline the process, and you get to choose the project or the end means for how you're going to present this, right? Whatever it is that you're learning, right? And so this project can take, right, depending on what you end up coming up with, it could be short, could be long. All right, I've talked long enough about this. Let's get right into this. All right, last time you came away with something like this, some sort of music web. And this is what we did together in class. Yours is much, much larger than this as you were looking for things. So what are we going to do with this today? All right, so if we're using what's known as inquiry learning, inquiry is about asking questions. All right, and so as we ask questions, right, we want to first of all take our bubbles and start finding connections. Okay, so that's kind of task one. All right, so you probably have some lines going to each individual thing, which is good. That's a way to see how it connects back to music, or how it connects to something like instruments or art. You have those lines. But now what we want to do is we want to start looking for other sorts of connections, right? And so what you're going to do in the first part for about 10 minutes or so, what you want to do is you want to take things like, okay, classical. Does classical connect to other sections, right? Now, in my mind, I'd say, okay, classical music connects to Mozart and Bach and Beethoven. Those things come together in a very clear way, all right? And so you start looking at your bubbles and finding connections, right? Maybe there's, I don't see any more connections there, though maybe you could find a connection to the instruments that are being used for that kind of music. So you start to find connections. So you want a different color. This helps you see the connections, and you kind of want to do that a lot, right? This should become a really colorful thing as you take different sections, say, okay, classical, and you can connect it here and connect it here, and now you kind of have like this red connection, all based on classical music, right? The other thing you can do then is take things, right? Maybe I'm going to take the word swag, right? And I accidentally made it red. I'm going to change that to blue. Now I look around and I start seeing things. Okay, swag, right? That had to deal with our good friend Justin. Maybe you personally thought, he's got good beats in his songs, or swag makes sense. Maybe swag is going to start connecting to the kind of headphones that people like to wear. Maybe it's going to come up here and be all about songs and singing. And so you draw lines, and you're going to see it becomes a mess, right? And that's why you need the colors, because you're going to have all this crisscrossing lines, but you want to be able to trace these colors back later as you're looking at this kind of stuff. All right, so that's step number one with what we're doing with our bulbs, is using different colors to try and find connections between different things. And it's okay to connect things that you've already connected. You know, if you've used red here and you also want to connect blue to it, that's okay. All right, so things can connect in multiple ways, but we want to kind of find bigger connections that can go there. Right? So that's part one. Part two then is going to be all about now looking at those connections and transforming it. It gets into what we know is understood as our inquiry-based cycle. Right? And we're kind of in this stage right here. It's called I wonder. We're looking and we're starting to ponder now. We're seeing music. We have lots of ideas about it and connections are being made. Now we want to start, as we are making those connections and as we're looking and seeing all the relationships, now we kind of want to start asking questions, turning those connections into questions. Right? And so from here, we're going to kind of start looking at different ideas and categorizing them, right? And so you could do different things. Maybe you were making connections with different type of music theory. So maybe you're going to create a column called music theory, and you're going to start asking questions about music theory. You know, like how was music notation developed? And that question comes from the fact that, you know, maybe you were talking about notes and symbols and clef signs and different things like that. Things you see, I don't know what that thing was. Things that you see in music that you just really have no idea what they mean, you know? And so music notation develops. So you want to understand where all these connections are coming from. So that would be a music theory thing. Maybe you have a historical connection that seems to appear. And maybe you want to do, you could do different kinds of historical things. You could do different periods. You could do modern type connections compared to, you know, if we go back to that classical example, classical connections. And you could look into different things. You know, maybe you're going to focus on an artist. Maybe you're going to focus on Beethoven. Right? So that's your keyword. This isn't a question, but I'm just writing that word so you can see it. You're focusing on Beethoven, and now you want to ask a question like, okay, if Beethoven, you know, like, he ended up writing like 500 different things, if my memory is serving me correctly. It's like, you know, what motivated Beethoven to continually write? Or maybe you're looking really for, you know, like a biography type idea, and it's okay to write more than one question on one topic. You know, so if you find Beethoven and suddenly you just, it's kind of like you're just thinking of questions about things that suddenly you're curious about, or it's like, I kind of want to know a little bit more about this. You want to know about how old was he? Now these are simpler questions. How old was he when he started? How many? Right? These are really simple questions, but then you can get into things like what motivated him, or you can get bigger questions like, how did his music impact, that's the word I'm looking for, people during his life compared to after he died, right? So that question, it becomes way different. It allows you to explore some of the aspects of who he is, but now it's a much bigger question, and it's going to take you some time to answer that. All right, okay. And so in the end, we kind of want to build towards this type of question, but it's okay to start with these smaller ones, because sometimes these smaller ones lead us to these bigger ones. They help us develop a big question that we can really take time and learn from, rather than just doing a quick Google search or Bing search and saying, when was this person born? Boom, you got the answer in 5 seconds. Right? We want to slowly build, but you got to start with simpler questions. Right? Start with simpler questions and then build on them. Right? So your assignment for next time, this video has gone longer than I kind of wanted it to, but after you're done kind of making all your color connections, then look at those connections that you're finding and start writing questions. All right? Writing questions. Categorize it, write questions, and fill up kind of a sheet of paper. So to do that, you can either you know, find a white sheet of paper. You can ask, any teacher will give you a white sheet of paper, you know, and you can break it out into little boxes, right? You want to be neat and organized about this. This you don't want to be too messy. If you get too jumbled and messy, then you lose some of your questions. But give yourself little categories. Maybe you have historical, right? That was an example. Music theory. Maybe you're going to do more instrumental type stuff. Maybe you're doing social impact. That's huge, right? Maybe your musical connections led you to things like dance, or ballet is a form of dance. I was about to say ballet, but that's technically a form of dance. But dance, of course, could be lots of different things. It could be ballet, it could be stomp, it could be lots of different things. Maybe you're looking into pop culture and musical connections there. All right, we had that word swag come up. Right? Maybe that's a whole category by itself with understanding what to do. Right? But you break down your sheet of paper. You can use line paper or you can use white paper, whichever is going to be easiest for you to get your hands on. But you want to write questions. All right. So we're looking for, right? Remember, start with simple questions, but then build. Now, I'm going to give you a number, but the more questions you have, the easier it's going to be to progress through the rest of these projects the rest of the year. All right. If I say 25 questions, right? If I say that number, and all you do is throw it on 25 simple, Google answers it real fast questions. Yeah, you'll have the 25 questions that I'm requiring. However, you're going to have a really hard time building a project. But if you come to me and you've done this, and let's say you only have 15 questions, but you have 5 questions that are big, high-level thinking questions, deeper, cannot be answered with a quick search or 2 quick searches or even 3 quick searches, I'm going to be super excited for you because you found a great pathway to go. All right. So that's what we're looking at. All right, 15 to 25. Right, 15 if you got some of those higher level questions. 25 if you're just sticking to the simple Google type answers. All right. Okay, I've taken up enough of your time explaining this, but hopefully it will make sense at what you're supposed to do for next Friday. If not, you'll see me on whatever day it is, and we can discuss this some more and give you some more ideas on how to progress through this idea. All right, that's it for the music project.